Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Haley with Haley Stitches, and today I'm going to show you how to make the quilt from the book The Little Ghost Who Was a Quilt. This is a cute little picture book that's perfect for Halloween. The main character is a ghost made of a quilt, so what better project for quilters than to try to replicate the main character. This is a simple patchwork quilt made up of charm squares, and I have a free pattern that you can download by clicking the link in the description of this video. All you have to do is enter your email address and I'll send it directly to your inbox. The pattern uses 2 charm packs and it includes a version with the face block and without the face block. I'm excited to show you this adorable little quilt that goes perfectly with the book. Let's get started. First, let's go over all the supplies we need for today's project. The first thing I suggest, but is of course not required, is the book, The Little Ghost Who Was a Quilt. I definitely recommend picking up the book if you plan to gift this quilt. Next, we need 2 charm packs, and I am using the fabric line Blue Jean by Christopher Thompson. I thought it matched the book really well, but you of course can use scrap fabric or something from your stash. If you're doing the face block, you'll need a fat eighth of black fabric. To finish your quilt, you'll need your binding and backing fabric. I'm using this gray to bind and the floral blue to back. For supplies, you'll need a rotary mat, a rotary cutter, a ruler. I'm using a 6.5 inch square ruler. You'll also need a marking tool and matching thread. The thread I always use is called Dove and the brand is Aurifil. Everything I'm using can be found in the description below. The first thing I'm going to do is cut the black fabric. This fabric is going to be for the eyes and the mouth in the pattern. All you need is a fat eighth of fabric, but I didn't have any black fabric in my stash, so I had to order a full yard. So I'm going to cut a 3¼ inch strip, and then I'm going to leave my strip folded in half just to make quick work of this cutting. And then I'm going to trim the selvage. And from this 3¼ inch strip, I'm going to cut a 5 inch rectangle and a 2¼ inch rectangle. These larger rectangles will be for the eyes, and the smaller rectangles are going to be for the mouth. Now we can move on to our charm square fabric. If you're doing the quilt without the face block, all you have to do is just arrange these fabrics in the way that you want for a simple patchwork quilt. But if you do plan to make the face block for the quilt, then we have to make those face block pieces first before we arrange everything in that patchwork pattern. The face block is made up of 4 sections: the left eye, left mouth, and right mouth. And for each section, you're going to need 2 matching charm squares. So I'm just going through my charm packs looking for 4 sets of duplicate prints. And if you're using your scrap fabric or for some reason your charm pack doesn't have enough duplicate prints, just choose fabrics that look as similar as possible so you can get a cohesive look throughout each face block section. These are the prints I ended up with for each section of the face block, and I tried to choose ones that were contrasting with each other. If I made this again, the top left one I wouldn't have made as dark because the black doesn't stand out against it. So learn from my mistake and choose ones that will contrast against the black. But let's get started with the eye blocks here. The dark fabric is for the left eye and the lighter fabric is for the right eye, and both eyes are made exactly the same way. So I am going to just double up these fabrics, a left and right eye with a left and right eye, to make the cutting go a little bit quicker. From the first set of charm squares, I'm going to cut a 2¼ inch rectangle, and I'm also going to cut 3 1½ inch squares. And we actually need a total of 4 1½ inch squares, so I'm going to trim 1 more 1½ inch square from the second set of charm squares for the eye blocks. To recap, you should have 1 2¼ inch by 5 inch rectangle and 4 1½ inch squares for each eye block. Now we're moving on to the mouth blocks. So again, these are cut the exact same way. So I'm just going to overlap the left and right mouth squares so that the cutting goes a little bit faster. So from the first set of squares, we are going to cut 1 3¼ inch by 5 inch rectangle. And then this is all we need from this set of squares. And then from the next set of squares, we are going to cut 1 2¼ inch square and 2 1½ inch squares. And as you're assembling this quilt, make sure you keep all the pieces labeled so you don't mix anything up. In total, you should have 1 3¼ inch by 5 inch rectangle, 1 2¼ inch square, and 2 1½ inch squares for both the left and the right mouth block sections. Now it's time to assemble our face block sections. So this is all the fabric we need for the left eye block. We're going to be using the snowball method to assemble these blocks, and if you don't know what that is, it's a really great skill to learn because it's really popular in a lot of quilt patterns. So the first step is to draw a diagonal line on the wrong side of your fabric, and this is going to be on each of those 1.5-inch squares. And next you are going to place those squares where you want to sew them on the other piece of fabric. So in this case, they're going to go in each corner of this black rectangle, and you want to make sure that that diagonal line is not pointing towards the corners. This diagonal line is actually what you're going to sew on. So we're going to take this to our machine and sew on each of these lines. After the pieces are sewn together, you're going to trim 1/4 inch away from the sew line, and then you can discard the little dog ears that come off after you trim. After everything is trimmed, you can press in the direction of your choosing. I typically just press away from the center because it seems to be easier when you're doing snowballed corners. And this is how the unit will look after everything is pressed. Now we can sew our 2 1/4 inch rectangle to the side of this unit, and you'll get what your finished eye block will look like. And the great thing about this is that you just repeat this method for the next eye block, and all you have to do is just rotate it 180 degrees, and then you'll have both of your eye blocks. And this is what both the left eye block and the right eye block look like side by side. And now we can move on to our mouth blocks. So these are pieced a little bit differently, so you'll have to do each individually. So these are all the pieces we'll need for the left side of the mouth. The first step is going to be to snowball the 2 1.5-inch squares to the side of this small rectangle. So you're going to draw on the back just like we did previously with the eye blocks. Sew, trim, and press in the direction of your choosing. Then sew the 2 1/4-inch square to the top of the unit. And lastly, you'll sew the 3 1/4-inch rectangle to the left side of this unit. And after you piece this all together, this is what the left side of the mouth block is going to look like. And the right side is very similar. It's basically just the opposite. So we'll walk through quickly the steps for that. So first you will lay out all of your pieces, and we are going to snowball the squares just like we did previously, but we'll do it on the opposite side. So this time it'll be on the right top and right bottom. Then you'll sew the 2 1/4-inch square to the unit, and after that's pieced, you'll sew the 3 1/4-inch rectangle to the mouth unit. And in total, this is what your mouth blocks will look like at the left side and the right side. And then we'll add the eyes on top, and you can kind of see the ghosty face come together. And I'm going to sew the eye pieces together and the mouth pieces together just to make sure that they don't get swapped or mixed up as I'm assembling all of the rows. Now that the face block is assembled, we can move on to assembling our full quilt. So how I did this was I laid out all of the charm squares, got it how I liked it, and then lined it all up into rows and kept everything organized using those alphabeties I showed a second ago. So this is the first row, and how we're going to piece this is just sew row by row and alternating the way that we're pressing our seams so that when we fully assemble it, everything nests nicely. And to make sure that things don't get all jumbled up and mixed up, I'm just going to sew one piece at a time to the rows. You can definitely chain piece this if you're super organized and everything will stay in the way that you want it, but I am not so good at that, so I just sew one piece on at a time, just like this. And you'll repeat that step for each row. And I am going to place my eye blocks in row 4 of this quilt and my mouth blocks in row 5. So this is what my row 4 looks like when it's all placed together like this. And I am just going to sew the pieces just like I did for the first row. And you can place the eye blocks and the mouth blocks in whatever row you want. I just thought it would look good in row 4 and 5, and that's what I suggested in the pattern, but you definitely can customize it and put it wherever you want, wherever you think is best in the quilt. So this is what row 4 looks like assembled with the eye blocks, and then this is row 5, and this is what it looks like fully assembled there as well. So when these rows are together, you can really start to see this face block come to life. If you're not including the face block, you'll sew your rows together and press the seams in alternating directions so that when you assemble all of the rows, they nest together nicely and everything is lined up. And this is what it looks like as I'm just laying everything out for the face block version. So you can see that scrappiness really starts to pull together, and this is just what I decided on for the distribution of laying everything out. And you can see that left eye just kind of blends in a little bit too much. So like I said earlier, I would definitely choose a lighter fabric for the center faces just to make sure there's a lot of contrast against that black. But this is what the full thing looks like after it's all pieced together. I think it turned out so super cute. This has actually been kind of circulating around for a couple years on the internet. This The Little Ghost Who Was a Quilt project, but I haven't seen a video or like a step-by-step tutorial, so that's why I decided to make one. And again, you can download the completely free pattern by clicking the link in the description below, and I'll email it your way. If you like this tutorial, I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel so that you can see all of my future videos. I would also love it if you'd share this video with a friend or on social media. That helps me out so much and lets more people discover my channel. I hope you liked today's project, and I will see you next time.